Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Liberal White Dudes. First off, you're welcome for the title music. I know you all appreciated that as you're waiting for us to join our program today. We have decided to do a sort of different segment. It's been brought to my attention. Apparently, there are other white males on the internet.
Yeah, it turns out.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Even specifically on YouTube. And Jared, you had mentioned previously something about it's easy to go from just sort of, hey, what are politics on YouTube? And then going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Not even not like just, hey, what are politics? And then, hey, what are politics into like Nazism? That pipeline on YouTube is pretty swift. They've got a good setup for that.
Yeah. Their algorithm of what are you watching? What's it gonna mean? And then here's something that's kind of like that, and then it just starts to tilt and twist until you get to, how about being a Nazi? And you're like, well, maybe after all this other stuff I've heard,
All this prep.
So special edition is beefing over turf. Today's gentleman that we'll be talking about is Steven Crowder. It is Steven, right?
Yeah.
Full name Steven.
Yes.
Everybody calls him Steven.
Yeah, that's
I subjected myself to a bunch of his stuff. For those of you who've never seen him, and we name drop Fox News, we name drop Newsmax, and now we're name dropping right-wing propagandists. But I think it's important to sort of be the counter voice, the counter argument to these sort of garbage folks who present themselves as somebody
moderate, even
moderate. Yeah, he puts himself, his most recent episode. So yesterday, and I thought this was kind of funny. Yesterday, his big comment after his hour-long episode was, "What do you think? What constitutes real news?"
Wow, he's copying us.
Yeah, he was one of our 11 viewers on Tuesday.
Apparently.
Because he has just suddenly asked the question, what do you think? What constitutes
Later
real
this
news?
week, he'll be beefing over turf.
He is,
Hopefully,
he's setting up his
hopefully
beefing
with
over,
us.
Yeah, he's setting up his beefing over turf episode for next week. So this was the Change My Mind guy. Have you guys seen that? Those videos?
Segments? Yeah. The Change My
Yeah.
Mind segment is basically him on a college campus where he talks to college students who are they're not studied for this, and he shows up with his talking points, and he's basically prepped himself to rhetorically win the conversation every time, even if what he's saying doesn't have any actual basis, even if the thing that he's saying is just false.
Yeah, they're just ambushes, really. They're just
exactly
preloaded ambushes, like you said. The questions are rhetorical. He already has the answers that he is gonna spout. It's a total ambush.
He
it's
prepped
not
for this,
real.
and he's talking to people who are just randomly on a college campus. I watched a considerable amount of it. There's only two genders. Change My Mind. That is 3 million views on YouTube. I don't know if people are watching that and they're having their minds changed as to whether or not, they have valid viewpoints because he is spouting them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's, ultimately, obviously, the concern. He says before that video that it's not a debate, it's a conversation. But he's clearly prepped.
He's prepped for a debate.
A lot of time prepping, which of course you would before you go sit out in public.
Yeah, if you're gonna go talk to college students, you don't want to get dunked on by college students, obviously. Yeah. But also, don't frame it like this is just two people talking, because you are someone who is studied and knows what they're talking. At least knows how to deliver their point.
He's going to change his mind.
Yeah, exactly.
He's
that's not his goal.
I mean, the whole change my mind idea is not. It's not actually what he's looking for. He is looking to change the mind of the watcher.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad angle. I support starting conversations, but that's not what that is. Like you said, it's not what that is.
It's not.
It's an ambush.
Convincing as YouTube viewers.
It's, but it's certainly successful approach in getting his ideals out there because, like you said, Jared, the conversations are already designed for that. They're already
designed to prove his
to
point.
His points out there, and so they're not real conversations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and he even mentioned so. Fast forward to yesterday's atrocious episode. It's kind of interesting the difference, the transformation there between, you know, him going out in public and, you know, ambushing folks and you know, assaulting them with his, you know, viewpoint, and then move to a more Rush Limbaugh style, you know, loud, angry Hannity, Tucker Carlson, and this is the kind of diet that I guess is out there for the right. You know, maybe I don't talk fast enough to hit my viewers,
to garner that sort of viewing.
I think everybody understands, you know. So I get it. He's upbeat. He's, you know, he has a laugh track. He has yes men.
He's got his hype men there on the sidelines, and that's, you know, it's a good formula.
Continue. I'm gonna give
one of my favorite things of his that there are times where even he says something that the people in his studio don't think is particularly funny, and it'll cut to one of them, and he's like, those people will be cringing, like his yes men. Like there was like a cut, I don't remember what episode it was recently, but I was watching it for, you know, I hate watching, and I cut away, and it was just his, like, one of his yes men going. It's like, man, that's, even your yes men are down on that. That's rough.
One of the ongoing conservative narratives is they like to say this is news and nobody's covering it, right? The left wing media doesn't cover this. So he spent some time on the case, the Texas case. You know, absolute assault on our democracy. The idea that the Supreme Court should decide who the next president is, regardless of election results. I mean, that's the bare bones of that lawsuit, right? So he says, you know, I watched for 30 minutes CNN and they didn't talk about it at all. Left-wing media doesn't want to talk about this. So I went ahead and took a quick look on the internets. You know, our left-wing media sources, or what they would consider to be left-wing or mainstream media sources, talking about this at all. And this is CNN front page. This is MSNBC front page. This is ABC front page. This is CBS front page. And this is NBC front page. All have a story on this lawsuit because of what it means to our country and what's
Steven
going
Crowder.
on with that.
Steven Crowder, do not get us wrong. An assault on our democracy is definitely news. It's just
for everybody.
We're just not reporting it the way you are, quote unquote, reporting it.
We don't agree that your narrative is the right one. If that's you mean by not reporting the news, is not saying what I say, then I guess, I mean, sure, but that's not what that means.
And he said, you know, I care about the truth. That was one of the things that he puts out in his narrative. And it's funny how much misinformation and how many lies and how many things that are easily fact-checked as false. Right? And then they just end it with, you know, I mean, it's the Trump thing that he did during the 2016 election. Believe me, you know.
So many of these right-wing talking heads, that's their battle cry, is this war on truth, war on the real truth, which is just that one baby step away from, you know, conspiracy theory, like ridiculous, which is, you know, that's how you end up in a position where you have the president of the United States saying, hey, go read Newsmax. Like, that's how you get to that point, is, you know, those baby steps get you there, you know, at some point, you know.
Yeah, I'm not a philosophy major, for those who are wondering about my background. But I do believe in truth. I believe that there is a reality, that there are facts, that there are things in this world that you can just point to and go, yeah, that's true. That's something that happened. That's a reality, right?
Stuff exists.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny because the left's is where all the philosophers are, and yet the right wing has now embraced the idea that there is no objective reality, that alternative facts are a thing, that you may say, you know, Mount Rushmore has 4 presidents on it. That's a fact, and it exists in South Dakota, the worst Dakota.
Sorry, any fans in South Dakota, we love you.
Yeah,
we
it's not a statement on the people. Just
we don't have fans in South Dakota.
According to our demographics, we don't have fans in South Dakota. But if there are any liberal white dudes in South Dakota, you know what I'm talking
definitely.
about. You walk out your door every day, you go to your job, and you get people yelling at you in MAGA hats.
Yeah.
But, you know, to answer, you know, Steven Crowder's question, what do we think? What constitutes real news? Not you.
Yeah. Hot take.
Agreed.
Not you.
I think it's, I think it's entirely delusional. And also just, I watched it as well. And there was a point in the episode where he seemed to be worried that people weren't acknowledging that the Texas lawsuit was real. It's like, at one point he was very adamant about like, look, we'll show you, this is an actual document. Like, it's real. We're like, we know it's real, dude.
We're not claiming the Texas isn't happening. It's not, that's not the argument.
Again, we acknowledge that this is news. This is a thing that's happening. We're just not reporting on it the way you are because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not the slant that there's any validity to it. It's not the slant that it makes sense for it to even be a thing. We don't deny the existence of Rudy Giuliani. I wish, you know, he wasn't the thing, right?
Yeah, I wish I could.
Yeah, but I don't deny he exists. I don't deny that he leaks. You know, I mean, that's
none of the objective truths that exist about him.
I don't deny that he wiped boogers on his face on live television.
All over his face and hands.
So
there's no
a number of things
that.
I don't deny about that, but I don't give it the slant that he's a good lawyer. I mean, they said that on their episode too. They're like, you know, Rudy Giuliani's a lawyer. Like, A, that's news, or B, that you have to be a specific specifically. I mean, the amount of takedowns that came out after his first appearance in court, where like he doesn't understand how to court anymore. If he ever did, right? Yeah. He doesn't understand lawyering. It's like lawyering 101. He's like, this is a fraud.
Being a lawyer doesn't mean you're a good lawyer.
Fraud? And he's like, it's a fraud. And they're like, but you are going to be held to a much
you need to give us evidence.
Legal, you know, standard if you say fraud. And he's like, okay. No.
Well, you heard the new
no fraud then.
Well, the new thing is that that's the thing about the evidence, is that it's the way it was done makes it so you can't see it. That's the proof. The proof that something fraudulent happened is because there's evidence we can't see.
Yeah.
That's the logic.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not to harp on something or bring back something that probably is a whole episode, but as far as, you know, the religious right being a thing, you know, something not being seen does not mean you can't believe it, right? Used to very much believing in things that are in no way verifiable.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, if their argument is that there's a bunch of fraud, and the reason we know there's a bunch of fraud is because we couldn't stand close enough to see the fraud, which doesn't. It just doesn't make any sense. You don't know that there's fraud. If you can't get close enough to see it, it's either you can't get close enough to see it, or you were close enough to see that there was fraud. Just because you couldn't see it doesn't mean there was something bad that happened. I can't see outside of the room that I'm in right now because the door is closed. Doesn't mean there's something bad happening on the other side of that door. There could be nothing happening there. It just means I can't see it. That's all it means. You can't immediately assume something bad happened.
They waved Barr out of the room like a bad fart. They were just like, whoa. This guy who's been on our side, who clearly thinks the president should be a dictator, has, you know, put all kinds of just horrible and dangerous ideas in his head and in the government's head. Fraud? This guy's a deep state, you know, scene.
Yeah.
Well, it's so, Steven Crowder and so many of these, people like him, they follow that same pattern that Trump does, which is the minute you speak out, say anything that does not line up with where we're at, what we believe happened, what we're saying happened, then they immediately turn on you. You saw a ton of that happen with Tucker Carlson just for one time acknowledging the facts at some point. It's just, and then Trump turning his back on the entire Fox News network, essentially, because of that. It's the same pattern. The minute you disagree with us, you're no longer on our side.
He uses a couple of terrible rhetorical devices in his, change my mind segment, and as much of that as I could watch. But I will give a shout out to Madison, who was the second person to sit down in that segment. They were very well thought out, had great descriptions of their experience and the general talking points related to gender for that. But I will say he used what is, I feel like, an easily dismantleable rhetorical argument, which is we've always done it this way. We've always
the tradition,
said it this
the
way.
appeal to tradition, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so terrible. There was a time when we always, counted African Americans as 3/5 of a person.
Or worse, owned them as human beings.
Yeah.
That was legal, and we used to do that. Like, that's not a good argument.
No.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that necessarily will hit home for him. Like, he would go, "Oh, you're right. That's terrible." I'm not sure he feels that way. Unclear.
Yeah, who's to say?
There was a time when, interracial marriage, as an example, like, we've always done it this way. Or voting, it was just white land. We've always done it that way. That's not a good argument for why we should continue to do it that way.
Right. There's countless examples throughout history where obviously progression was born out of the necessity for that progress. It was necessary to move forward as a society. That's always. Are you going to
call us goddamn progressives every episode?
No. That wasn't necessarily directed at, you.
Jared's going to call us progressives every episode.
I'll call us progressives every episode.
I'll own that. I'll own it. I don't know.
I'm a progressive. I'll own that. I'll own that title. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't look like progressives, so we're good. We're good stealth progressives.
We certainly don't.
That's one of the things about being a liberal white dude is you can walk into spaces that other progressives cannot and hear what they have to say. Now, unfortunately, anyone can hear what Steven Crowder has to say. He did touch a little bit about, so YouTube is going to be defunding or kicking off people who are continuing to spread misinformation about the election.
Yeah.
Good.
As you would.
Yeah. And it's not censorship. It's not...
Well, he's already he's already still licking his wounds from YouTube demonetizing him for a year. He just got out of being grounded back in August. He was demonetized from 2019 to August 2020 due to his homophobic attacks and the backlash from the community on that. And so he's already kind of sour on YouTube anyways, obviously, for that. But yeah, YouTube announcing that they're going to start demonetizing people that are just spreading bullshit.
I mean, good on them as a company, because honestly, there isn't a whole lot of reason for them to do that. At the end of the day, the only reason they would do that is for the sake of the continuation of the democracy, which I feel like is a good thing. But like
America,
but let's take it, from the business perspective. As a business, there's no reason for them to do that at all. There's no reason
acknowledging the accountability that they have to at least do that is
exactly. It's good to know that even though they don't have to as a business, and it is technically a worse decision for them as a business, they still will do it anyway in the sake of, progressive thought. So that's nice, at least.
Jared, are you able to name 5 things you don't like about Steven Crowder?
That aren't ad hom? Probably not.
Yeah, we're gonna steer away from name calling in this episode.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like I
agree.
did already sort of call him garbage through some sort of transitive property, but not directly. I think I called him horrible too. Yeah, I've been pretty bad about that.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about hurting his feelings or even his viewers' feelings. The idea here is not to necessarily see him as a bad person at his core, which he is.
Yeah, which he is, but
more to when you hear his ideas, even though they're presented in what seems like a fun and thoughtful manner, they're generally false. I think the biggest thing to look at is it making room for others, right? When you say,
that's a
I
great
believe
point.
this and this is the way that it is, and if you don't believe that, we just have a disagreement and opinion, and it's like, well, no, because you live in the same world as that person, right? Them believing it makes it true because they believe it about themselves. Seems to be telling you that it's them.
That's like a universal principle with Steven Crowder and those like him. That is probably number one on the list as far as I'm concerned with them, is that they do exactly that. They don't make room for anybody else.
And they convince you that they are the most logical path. That's really my least favorite thing about the online conservatives, is that they're like, it's just the logic. It's just the reason. And then when you bring up logic or reason, they're like, no, hold on. It's so odd to me, because you can hide behind this veil of pseudo intellectualism, but there's no basis. There's no factual basis. They don't use that as their driving force. They use whatever.
Well, Jared, to be fair, Jared, you can't bring up actual logic and reason. That's
good point. Good point. Why have actual logic or reason in a conversation? That's my bad for trying to impart it.
Yeah. John Oliver did a piece on one of the Fox News walk downs where they start from a certain thing that liberals do believe and then walk you through the whole transgender penguin thing or whatever, and it's like, that is the walk that you should just not take with those people. It's so much easier.
Don't let them walk you.
Believe your eyes, believe your ears, look around you and realize. It's funny, just this evening I heard a conversation between my neighbor and a gentleman who generally walks his dogs off leash down by where I live, and both of them are older gentlemen, and I know them both sort of in the sort of passing way, in the way that both of them will wave, both of them will engage in a bit of light banter. The dog owning dude has fun dogs and whatever. They had a disagreement because they both have dogs off leash, but one guy, my neighbor who lives here, has a property that he has his dog off leash on. So when random guy who brings his dogs here, dog attacks his dog, they have beef. And what I heard from the two of them was not angry yelling, was not mad. It was a civil discussion from about 20 yards away, so yelling, but not in the angry way, about what they could do to come to some sort of compromise about making sure that their dogs didn't attack each other. And it was heartening in today's society to see two people who come from, because they don't know each other, so it would be even easier to just be like, I'm going to kill your dog.
Double birds and exactly.
Right? I mean, that could have been the starting point of that conversation, because I'm within my rights to do so. Neither of them has that accent. But instead they came from a place of, hey, you're another person, and we're standing here face to face. Let's have a discourse about how we can change this so that neither of us feels like what's going on is crappy.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, you just don't see that.
You just don't see it. It's one of those things that's like, it's just the whole tactic is to make it so that the only people that you can believe are the conservative talking heads, and anyone who dissents on that is just a horrendous human being, and you can be mean to them if you want to and yell at them, and don't ever try and take their point for what they're saying, and don't listen to them because they're just lying to you. and it's one of the things that bothers me so much, because more than even the fact that Crowder lies a lot, right, is that he insists that anyone else that disagrees with him is lying, or that anyone else who disagrees with him is just inherently wrong, right? There isn't any sort of basis to anything that could possibly be against his views, right?
Well, there's the presentation of this is going to be a conversation, or a presentation of
right,
that this is going to be a back and forth. But like you said, Jared, that's not really the case.
No, not when it comes
to not when it comes to what a lot of these guys say. It's exactly what you're saying, Jared. It's my way or the highway, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so it's not a conversation at all. It's not.
Yeah. It doesn't promote discussion.
Rush Limbaugh said that there is no middle ground. You know, conservatives and liberals cannot come to any sort of agreement. He was basically advocating violence in his most recent show.
As they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, Americans across the country know for a fact that they have done Thanksgiving, they have done weddings, they have done family reunions, they have done any number of places where they have coexisted with people who believe different things than them politically, and we're capable of having discussions and, you know, conversations, a lot of times steering away from politics, but as just people at our core, having those kinds of conversations that you have, right? And still realizing that the other person on the other end of that conversation is a person.
Yeah,
sometimes someone you love, someone should take that personally. They're not watching, but they should take that personally.
At family.
Yeah.
Certainly, that's certainly true.
Yeah, it's one of those things to me that's so odd, is because it's so easy to have a discussion. This is one of the things, when I was in high school, there was a guy at my school who was very, very, very conservative, like, you know, super Christian, super conservative, and I could still talk to him. He and I would still have conversations about politics, and it wasn't like we hated each other because of it. No, I don't like that guy. Like, that's not. I don't like him, but it's not because of his politics. It's just because of him as a person. But that's a separate thing. But from a political standpoint, from just a conversational political standpoint, we could have a conversation and not have some sort of like deep dehumanizing feeling about each other because of that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, the president of the United States normalized
so weird
name calling. I mean, the idea that anyone in public office or at that level of a microphone. Could you imagine Obama walking to the microphone and being like, this turkey-necked Mitch McConnell, you know, who looks like his face is sliding off his skeleton, is blocking our legislation?
Yeah, it just would not be like, what? Like, what even is that?
I can't picture
while true.
And then went home and retweeted like, you know, articles from like hate group media.
And like, what is the equivalent of white power?
He didn't just do that, you know.
What is the equivalent of white power for the left? Yeah, I know, but that's the thing, is like, you know, Trump will post guys yelling white power. It's like, how do you? It's one of the things that I've seen a lot too, is that it's like, it's beyond like being able to satirize it. It's gotten to the point where, like, if like he had trouble drinking that glass of water, and then he's on stage and he shows off, like he drinks a glass of water to show off. I'm like, how do you make a joke about that? It's just so, like, it's so inherently dumb. Like, what? Like, what? Like, how do you pass that?
It's so terrible. It's hard to satirize, but I think we can still hope for a time when it gets sodomized. Prison for Trump. Hashtag prison for Trump.
Yeah, there you go.
Am I allowed to wish sodomy on my enemies on this show?
I don't know.
He's an enemy of the American people and American democracy. It's not just me. It's all of you. All right. Well, Steven Crowder. Terrible.
Yeah.
Don't watch his stuff.
If you do watch his stuff, do yourself a favor and fact check everything he says. Do your own looking into it, because you can't even, and I encourage you to do the same thing for us. If we say something that you're like, that doesn't sound right to me, or if we say something you're like, that sounds right to me, go ahead and look it up, figure it out for yourself. Go see what science says. But here's what I'm saying. You should be aware of the biases that are present, right, in any situation. And I say that's true with Crowder, and I think it's true across the internet. So
yeah, I think especially with him, if you find yourself laughing, like I didn't find myself laughing. Everybody in their video was laughing, and I was not laughing. Yeah. I didn't think it was funny, but I thought it was pointedly wrong. But if you find yourself laughing at a Steven Crowder video, maybe take a look at where you think that humor comes from. What's the basis of that? Are you laughing because you like to laugh at things you don't understand? Or you like to laugh at things you don't sympathize with? I mean, the places that laughter comes from are sad and disappointing.
Yeah. So look in.
I'd agree.
Let's do some introspection.
So let's not end the show with the words sad and disappointing.
Good point.
Let's end the show with, hey, joy to the world and all that nonsense. We are entering the holiday season. We will do a holiday show. Ooh. That's exciting.
Get ready for that.
We're
super excited for that.
Various holidays. I think we'll find a way to include everyone, including Festivus supporters. So
definitely
looking forward to that. Follow us on Twitter, like us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and
subscribe to us on YouTube as well.
Yes, of course. As always, go out there, do better. Thanks for showing up.
What is your goal here? Is your goal to convince people that they should support this? In those 3 words, you're definitely not doing that. We're not news. We're not in.